Vino Geek Podcast, wine from a Kiwi perspective. Welcome back. This week, the topic, Marlborough, the UNESCO World Heritage Site. This threw me when I read it. I saw a post and I thought, saying this exact same thing. I'll go into that article and read it. Unfortunately, it was behind a paywall, but it did get me thinking, how would Marlborough go about becoming a World Heritage Site? And is it eligible? Is it able to meet criteria that it needs to meet? It's not as implausible as
When it comes to travel, experience matters. Book with the A-team, Amanda and Anna from King Travel. With a combined 25 years in the industry, we'll look after your holiday from start to finish. Join us this August for Adelaide Uncorked, our hosted wine journey with Amanda and Caleb King. Think Barossa Valley, McLaren Vale, long lunches and premium tastings. Experiences you'd find hard to access on your own, all in a relaxed, small group with an optional Kangaroo Island add-on. Book local, book with confidence. Go to kingtravel.co.nz.
Now that I've got you hooked and we're into the episode, why is it not that implausible? Sure, when we think of UNESCO World Heritage Sites, we think of the Great Barrier Reef, Machu Picchu, the Pyramids of Giza, but as far as wine regions go, there's Champagne, there's parts of Burgundy and Piedmont, to name a few. So why isn't Marlborough up on those levels? Why? Because it hasn't been around for centuries and it's, it is so young. It can't be because it's a one-trick pony. I mean, sure, Burgundy has two wines, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And, Piedmont is only Nebbiolo. Really, that's what sets it apart. And then Champagne is this blended wine with bubbles. So it's not like they are doing a lot of things. They do one, maybe two things very, very well. So it can't be because they're a one-trick pony. I mean, sure, it could be because of youth, but let's have a look at it. Let's really break this down. Marlborough, in its short 40-year lifespan, has achieved greatness. I mean, when you think of Sauvignon Blanc, when people think of Sauvignon Blanc around the world, what's the first region they think of when they think of that? It's Marlborough. I mean, Marlborough, of all the places in the world, it's Marlborough. That's amazing. I mean, it is up there with the likes of Barossa for Shiraz and California for Zinfandel, outside of France, Napa for Cabernet, if you like. So there are New World wine regions that have stamped their mark on the world and said, we now do this. And while I do hear the argument, I used to hear the argument that Loire Valley does Sauvignon Blanc better, it's hard for, take the bias lens off and really look at it. Is it better? Is it better? For me, no, it's different. It is different. And, because of the success of Marlborough, Loire Valley has seen a renaissance. I have seen the price of Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé skyrocket, in my time in wine. So there's no doubt that Marlborough has impacted the home of Sauvignon Blanc. It's not just impacted the world and the way it drinks. It's impacted the Loire, and Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé, and the fact that people around the world, Soms, are saying, why drink Marlborough when you can drink something from France, from the home, which, let's be fair, should be better. But is it that much better? The fact that Marlborough has evolved in the way that they make Sauvignon Blanc. They're not just making that zesty, fresh, punchy, lively, in your face style. They're making these beautiful, seductive, elegant, and graceful styles of Sauvignon Blanc. Very, very reminiscent of Sancerre. And you know that, while Sancerre has impacted Marlborough and Pouilly Fumé, vice versa has happened. The Loire heavyweights have impacted what Marlborough producers are doing and what Marlborough sees in the ability of Sauvignon Blanc, what they can do with Sauvignon Blanc. So, that being said, the fact that it really put Sancerre and Pouilly Fumé on the map as far as, oh yes, prior to this, what did people drink from France? They did not drink necessarily Sancerre outside of, a few key people. It is known now. Why do people know these regions? It's because of Marlborough. The cultural impact that Marlborough has had on the world of wine makes it tick a box in the criteria for UNESCO World Heritage. And, that can't be just waved away by the fact that it's young. In its 40 years, it's had this impact. And while I believe that's a massive tick, there are some holes in a potential proposal for Marlborough to be granted World Heritage status. I mean, it hasn't been doing it for a long time, and that's a massive factor. Because, reading through criterion to achieve such status, long-term keeps coming up. Long-term cultural impact, long-term land impact, and land use. And whilst these don't, Marlborough doesn't really tick long-term in that regard, it is really having an impact. It is having an impact as far as land use. The fact that, Marlborough is basically, reliant. Its main industry is wine. Without it, there is no industry in Marlborough. People will argue this point, but let's be realistic. You wouldn't exist there if there wasn't a wine industry to bring people in, to actually have money to actually generate economic value in the region. So Marlborough as a wine region has shaped the land. The land is shaped by the wine region. And that is, and again, that is a tentative, a tenuous argument there. There is holes in that argument, but that is the argument nonetheless. As far as culture, we kind of discussed on that, how it has given Sauvignon Blanc a new lease of life. It did not have the life it has. It did not have the impact globally that it does have, and based on that impact, obviously it's impacted culture and the way people drink, the way people look at wine. People are not looking at wine as being such an elitist thing. Sure, it's not just Marlborough that has had this effect on the wine trade. It is also Australia. It's had a massive effect on, the consumption of wine, because all of a sudden wine was more accessible. It wasn't just for the elitist. It wasn't just, oh yeah, they drink wine, we drink beer, spirits, what have you. It has evolved. Whether that is directly impacted by Marlborough, it's hard to tell. I mean, you'd have to say yes, because all of a sudden, white wines went from being austere and, struggling with the word, but austere and unfriendly and not necessarily widely sought after as something to drink. But Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc changed it. The fruit, the vibrancy, the zestiness, the impact it had as soon as you drank the wine changed things overnight. It changed perceptions of wine overnight. of how wine could be. So that's a significant cultural impact, if you're asking me. Now, before we get into the reasons why a potential submission would fail, which, let's be real, for a balanced argument, we have to look into that. Let's talk about the benefits, the benefits to Marlborough in the rest of New Zealand as not only a wine industry, but as a country. As a wine industry, New Zealand would gain significantly with having a UNESCO World Heritage site here in New Zealand. It's already gained by having a World Wine Capital, which is great. Hawke's Bay has that. But when you consider how impactful Marlborough has been on the world of wine and obviously drags New Zealand to the world, without Marlborough, the New Zealand wine industry wouldn't be where it is right now and wouldn't be still growing. So for this to really, this will benefit because it'll drag more people here. It'll give New Zealand more of a status. It'll mean that growers and producers would be able to command more in the market. Sure, it doesn't benefit the everyday drinker, but at the end of the day, it will benefit the wine industry because all of a sudden they can charge more for their quality product. You look at France and Burgundy, for instance. I mean, Champagne is a prime example. I reposted a reel that the mother of Bubblesness, I need to remember that, she posted a clip, and it was literally a guy that had harvested a globe artichoke, and he was cutting it off, leaving only the heart, saying, when you buy Moe, that's what you're paying for. This is the quality, this is how much wine you get, but you're paying for the whole entire flower head. Now, that is because it has status. It has world recognition, world renown, world everything. If Marlborough gained this status, then Marlborough could charge more because people would want to pay it because the reputation says that it's worth it. And that's why you would go down there, and based on that, you would drag the rest of the country with you. Marlborough would drag every other producer with them and say, you have New Zealand on your label, you are now better. Likes of, Burgundy and Champagne, the only two regions in France that have UNESCO World Heritage sites, they drag the rest of the country with them. The status, the prestige that France has, it's not just built on having these historical sites, but it does help. Nebbiolo from Piedmont, the Barolo and Barbaresco, that reputation too is enhanced and helped by the fact that it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. These things matter. These things increase the bottom line for producers, for the region as a whole, for everyone associated with the wine region. It helps. So there is extreme benefits to it. That being said, there are, in order to really realistically have a viable shot at it, we are very young.
When it comes to travel, experience matters. Book with the A-Team, Amanda and Anna from King Travel. With a combined 25 years in the industry, we'll look after your holiday from start to finish. Join us this August for Adelaide Uncorked, our hosted wine journey with Amanda and Caleb King. Think Barossa Valley, McLaren Vale, long lunches and premium tastings. Experiences you'd find hard to access on your own, all in a relaxed, small group with an optional Kangaroo Island add-on. Book local, book with confidence. Go to kingtravel.co.nz.
So for the wine of the week, I've gone something. This is another one. I've had a lot of wine companies visit me of late in the restaurants. So again, I take notes of basically everything I try. And the significant ones, the ones that stand out, the ones that have something to offer, those are the ones that are the wine of the week. This week, gone for something that is a stalwart of Marlborough, and Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc in particular. One that most people would recognise as a decent Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough. And what I like about it is that it's not 100% typical. So it's not that stereotype. It does have a nod to the stereotypical Sauvignon Blanc, but not 100%. This is the Nautilus Sauvignon Blanc 2025. Now, I tried the 24, and not a huge amount of difference. They very much stick to their style, stick to their knitting, what they believe is the Nautilus style. And, you know, when we talk about heritage of a region, of a style, consistency does that. You can have subtle variation within that, but still sticking within your framework of your identity, what you are trying to achieve. And Nautilus is one of those producers that likes to stick to their knitting, that likes to get it as close as possible to how their house style. So that the colour, pale straw, you know, no green notes to it as well. One thing to note, traditionally Sauvignon Blanc has a little bit of a green tinge to it, but it is becoming less and less prevalent. As they pick a little riper, they want a little bit more texture, body, a little bit more power. So in the nose, ripe citrus and gooseberry, passion fruit and green stone fruit. So there was just that green stone fruit was right in the back end of the nose. It wasn't overt, it was just there lingering in the background, giving that green note rather than actually, you know, being herbaceousness. It was more the stone fruit. The palate was fresh and zesty, but had a lovely weight and body, and that was typified by passion fruit, you know, that sort of rounded passion fruit flavour, giving sort of a Moorish feel to it. There was a lovely mineral line to it, a little bit of liminess that just added a ripe acidity. Long, easy, smooth, and when I say easy, it's easy for Sauvignon Blanc. You know, great because it's just pared back, just that intensity just a little bit that lets it take a back seat. And if you're eating food with it, it's not going to fight with the food. One thing, if you get your typical Sauvignon Blanc, that explosive, punchy, vibrant, it can fight with food, where the Nautilus doesn't. It's not designed to fight with the food. It's designed to be a tiny step up. So from your basic to the next tier, and then obviously you keep going. So it's leaning more stylistically into something that's more food friendly. And as far as food, obviously fish, seafood, salads, mussels, greenlip mussels are almost quintessential Sauvignon Blanc fare. So that would be the pick as far as food goes. A score, you know, it's hard because I think it's as good as a previous Sauvignon Blanc I had, if not better. But it doesn't capture me. It didn't capture me as much as that one did. So, you know, and that for me is part of the scoring. It's got to still capture you. It's got to still, you know, it ticks all these boxes, but there's a little bit of wriggle room for something that's just that little bit exciting, if you like. So it's in here, 91 out of 100, really, really solid Sauvignon Blanc that touch a level higher than previous Sauvignon Blanc, but not that next level. So yeah, that's our wine of the week. And I say we in the collective New Zealand wine industry as a whole. And that is a massive, massive thing, when it comes to the criteria for a UNESCO World Heritage Site. I mean, the fact that you have, you cannot, these places have been doing it for, hundreds of years, centuries, they're not a World Heritage Site, but in at the Merchant, there was a wine that was imported there by the merchant that was established. The winery was established in the 1100s. So the fact that there is these wine companies out there that were established so long ago, almost 1,000 years ago, and Marlborough down here has a realistic shot at the UNESCO World Heritage Site status. One thing, cultural impact. New Zealand isn't a wine drinking country. New Zealand's foundations weren't built on wine as the drink of choice. Beer was the drink of choice in New Zealand. Beer, we are British by roots, and we're still associated heavily with Britain, and their culture still prevails. England or Britain isn't a culture of wine drinkers. They're a culture of beer drinkers and spirit drinkers. And that's what New Zealand is as a whole. It's not a wine drinking culture. Sure, we have developed that thanks to winemakers, thanks to wine growers, thanks to wine people, the wine industry producing amazing wine. Means that New Zealand has developed a wine drinking culture, but has developed. They don't have a developed wine culture. And that's, for me, a key difference. They are changing, Marlborough has started the catalyst for changing the culture of drinking in New Zealand, but it has not changed it. And, it should have already been established by the 80s. We should have already been wine drinkers. We should have already had a well-established wine drinking culture if we're going to claim ourselves to be a wine drinking country. Sorry, hay fever and sinus playing with me. Anyway, that being said, also, is it Marlborough as a whole? What makes Marlborough so good for Sauvignon Blanc? Can you pin it on one thing? The fact that there is different sites, there's different soil types, and it's not like Burgundy where it's quite braided and quite intermingled and intertwined so that, you get a strip of this and then a strip of that, and then it's a lolly scramble soil in Burgundy. In Marlborough, it is relatively linear. You know what you're going to get if you're planting grapes here versus here. If you're going to use this sub-region or plant in this area on the left bank of the Awatere River, you know what you're going to get. Where Burgundy a little bit different. So very unique soil structures in Burgundy. Where New Zealand is, where Marlborough as a whole is quite mixed and varied across the region, from riverstones to silt loam to clay, so there's not one established wine soil type, if you like, in Marlborough. Where in Champagne, it's renowned that it's the chalky soils that produce the wine of the quality it does. So what is it? What can you quantify as far as the landscape, a significant land impact? What impacts the wine? So can it be a World Heritage Site if it's mainly everything that contributes to it?
When it comes to travel, experience matters. Book with the A-Team, Amanda and Anna from King Travel. With a combined 25 years in the industry, we'll look after your holiday from start to finish. Join us this August for Adelaide Uncorked, our hosted wine journey with Amanda and Caleb King. Think Barossa Valley, McLaren Vale, long lunches and premium tastings. Experiences you'd find hard to access on your own, all in a relaxed, small group with an optional Kangaroo Island add-on. Book local, book with confidence. Go to kingtravel.co.nz.